My name is JoDee Neal. I'm the author of Outcry Witness, a former prosecutor's guide to healing injustice after sexual violence. You are watching Outcry Witness Unspoken, which is a podcast with video that goes over with guests and by myself what it feels like to have things inside of you that need to be said but are unsaid. These are the things that are unspoken. I have with me today Mr. Curtis Garrison. Curtis, welcome to Outcry Witness Unspoken.
Hi, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. We are here to talk about the Boy Scouts of America and the bankruptcy and how that is affecting survivors across the board. Curtis, how did you find me?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot. That's okay. I think there was you started posting kind of regularly, and it might have
Yeah.
been TikTok. It was either that or Facebook, and it became both because I started
Yeah.
following the updates, and they really were like straight to the point on what was important to the community I'm working with and myself. And I was like, wow, I need to reach out. That was great.
So I want to talk about the community that you're working with and yourself. Why would you be interested in watching survivor videos on TikTok?
Well, for me, I think the longest time, because I moved out, I'm 56. I moved out when I was 16. And as soon as I could drive and get a job, I basically left the cult that I was struggling to survive in. And at that point, it would have been, I wouldn't have been able to survive if I didn't, one way or the other, it was not going to be good. So I left. And I had been sort of trying to connect with others that were either part of the problem, surviving with me, but not sharing, or we, people not, if we told some adults, people weren't responding or they weren't holding anybody accountable. So when I hear survivors share, which has happened mostly more in like maybe the last 8 to 10 years, has become a little bit like the Me Too, that was a big
Hmm.
thing. And also some shows during where they talk shows where they'd have somebody come in and share, and hearing survivors share is very healing and inspiring. That's probably the short
Yeah.
part of it. It's been a long journey.
Where did your journey begin? You mentioned you were 16, you had to get out of there. Where were you hurt?
Well, my abuse began when I was like a toddler. I was adopted at 7 days old into a family that we had a lot of foster kids, and then my adopted parents had two daughters and a son of their own. So I was abused early, and then in Boy Scouts, three of us are in the Boy Scout bankruptcy from our troop, and that happened from 11 to 15. So all my existence, I've been, trying to fight this stuff. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And right now, you spend a lot of your days doing what for the Boy Scouts?
Uh, right now, we've got to get louder. We've got to unite as much as possible. We've got to connect with the right experts to we've gone through the process of making the bankruptcy happen. I've been pursuing this before the bankruptcy, which was filed February 18, 2020.
Hmm.
And we've gone all the way to appeals in the U.S. Supreme Court, and that was denied about 3 weeks ago. So right now we're trying to group together to share and let people know what's going on, because there's 56,218 is the latest number of us that have been processed in a determined amount, that the community just is not being, we're trying to get to the U.S. Congress.
Hmm. Now, when did you first decide to tell the truth about what had happened to you?
Publicly or just speaking out at all? What are you thinking?
In let's say in the context of Boy Scouts.
Oh, okay. Uh, that probably happened pretty early on, like maybe as I got older, a little bit into it, like maybe 15 or so, because I started realizing maybe there was hope, or maybe there was some type of possibility that something would be done. And we joked about it as kids, like, you know, you didn't know how to say, like, hey, this, like, I'm not doing okay or whatever, but you could, and that way you would be speaking out. But absolutely, as I started getting to be beyond 18 and early 20s, I was just doing all I could. But there was just, there's no social media, there's no any kind of groups for us to
Yeah.
meet, and it just didn't happen back then.
At that time, did you consider going through the criminal system or the civil system?
I did. I looked into it with the, again, you couldn't just Google. This was in the
Yeah.
early 80s. It was
Yeah. I
horrible.
mean, the statute of
Uh,
limitations were different too.
well, well, I was about to say my problem was I was in Louisiana. It did happen when we went camping and canoeing in Arkansas, and then I did some things in Texas. But I was surviving to the point where I look back at my Louisiana abuse, and because of the statute of limitations, I had until I was 19. So that
Oh my
was a
God.
ceiling or a dead end. And then when I look back, because I'm like struggling, I think 2012 was when I really was starting. There was something in the news. The perversion files were released, so I've been inching along, but every time I looked, I was like, oh, I aged out as the statute of limitations increased. I was like, well, it's too late, except for when it went to 30 years after my 18th birthday in Louisiana. I was like, wow, that's a lot. I was like, wow, I'm happy for Louisiana to have this. Not all states were even that
Yeah.
much. And I was 46. And then I started kicking things and saying I got 2 years left. And by the time that really took some ground, I was initiating, working with attorney to get the Boy Scout bankruptcy to happen with other
Understood.
survivors.
Uh, so you have never had an opportunity to say the truth about what's happened to you in a courtroom environment. Is that right?
Not in, not in person, and not officially. I was on a Zoom meeting with what they called an independent review option, which is really, I think, insurance mitigation. They were just
Mm-hmm.
my attorneys, and then insurance reps and the judge, no jury. So no, in fact, I told my attorney, I said, well, at least I kind of have a milestone that it's court documents, but not really court documents
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I've had a hearing.
Wow. And you're one of only barely 200, right? Am I right about that?
Right, right. Out of the 82,209 claimants, you had to pay 10 grand to apply, and then 10 grand after the hearing to get the report process, the judge's recommendation. And only, I think it's 199 of us out of 82,209 had that option.
So you were, let me make sure I'm getting this right. You wanted to say what happened to you in Boy Scouts of America while you were, involved as a child in that organization, but you hit systemic barriers. And one of
All the
those
way.
was the statute of limitations.
Yes, yes. That's the
And
kicker. Yeah.
what was the second one?
Uh, well, the limitation, besides the statute of limitations, is once you try to file, the system is just very limited on, you, I hate to, there's a lot of champions and there's good attorneys,
Hmm.
but the system for them is challenging and it's costly. So first, it's a business. It's a way they have to be able to
Yeah.
afford the effort, the resources. So if you don't have something that, my case, until the other two claimants in my troop came together, it was just, I mean, I had a little bit of evidence and stuff, but unless it's really, really, where the energy and time can be put into it, and they know, like, this is going to, be a good, return on anyway. That's the first thing. But then the bankruptcy was very,
Yeah.
very, and that's my goal, is to not. I want bankruptcies to never allow sexual abuse claims to be processed unless it's litigate. Oh, sorry. Chapter 7 and you're just working through the litigation or process of liquidating is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
To to figure out how that's going to be distributed. That's the only way a bankruptcy should use for sexual abuse victims, is just to get them compensated.
So I want to go back a little bit, and thank you for that answer. It sounds like you had begun to pursue a civil case against the Boy Scouts of America. But before you could really get any traction there, the Boy Scouts declared bankruptcy.
Very
Am I
true.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
So
happened to many people.
tell me how you felt in your body at the moment that you heard that the Boy Scouts had declared bankruptcy.
Right. I was confused because I wasn't sure what that would mean for myself, or just there was a few hundred claimants at that time that were not formally, but we knew we were kind of building a community to put pressure on them. And there was only, I'll have the stats, but I think it's like between maybe 1,500, a little bit above and below claims that had gone through the Boy Scouts before. So
Mm-hmm.
a few hundred was a lot, generally speaking. Even though we knew there was a lot of people that hadn't come forward. But the thing is I I was pretty kind of scared because I was like, I don't know if they're going to be just overly protected, and I didn't know because they don't, bankruptcy is about the entity, and I didn't know if it was going to be like, hey, here's your $5, and they're going to keep doing stuff, and I didn't know what that meant for my attorney, because some attorneys aren't bankruptcy attorneys; they're just civil injury
Yeah.
or uh, and plus the bankruptcy was filed February 18th, 2020. So I went to Delaware, and we were like, hey, I mean, there was a few hundred people in this one room looking to hear what the Boy Scouts were going to do with their bankruptcy. And they were saying, oh, we want this done fast and help you guys get justice in 6 months is what they just wanted to get over with, from their part, really. But they were trying to make it be like they were heroes for us. And it was just scary because immediately the pandemic kicked in, and that was horribly stressful, going through that bankruptcy process, and dealing with, not even the court hearings was on Zoom. And I was wanting to do all that as much as I could in
Yeah.
person and all that, as far as the bankruptcy
Yeah.
process goes. Yeah.
So why did you go to Delaware in person? Why did you want these hearings to be in person? What did that mean to you?
Right. Well, the reason why I went to Delaware is because I hate to be blunt, that's the bullshit that the Boy Scouts did. They formed a
Yeah.
puppet entity in Delaware. I think it's Delaware BSA. It's on the bankruptcy as who's the claimant is. And they're headquartered in Texas. And Texas would have been, I'm not an attorney and everything, but
Yeah.
Texas would have definitely not been in their favor. I think there's punitive damages is probably the significant part. It would have been much more costly for them. So they filed in Delaware, which is a lot more favorable to them. A lot of trickery and spinning of the process to protect them more. And that was in person because I was interviewing to be on the committee. And that was a group of guys that would represent the 82,209 claimants. And I'm talking about, it was either going to be 7 or 9 people. And I had a good chance to be on it because anyway, but there was I wasn't retired, in a sense. I didn't have 100% night and
Yeah.
day availability, and that was, they needed
Yeah.
that as a selection point.
Wow. Wow. But you wanted to go in person because you wanted the experience of being able to confront the entity that had allowed all this harm to come to you. Am I right?
100%, 100%, absolutely. And I will never forget when I first heard and saw the people representing the Boy Scouts, because I was furious on the snake oil spin. It was just disgusting. It still
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Now you've said this number that is mind-blowing. Say slowly how many individuals like you have come forward as part of this bankruptcy and said, I was hurt as a Boy Scout. How many are those?
Right. Well, the official settlement number is 82,209. It's a few hundred above that, sorta, that for whatever reason we're able to do that. But the reality is now the active claims are around 64,000 because they won't tell us, but a lot of us didn't make it. There's a lot of people that it's been 6 years as of it's the 21st. The 18th was 6 years. February 18th, 2020 was the filing, so 2026 is 6 years, and there's just radio silence with people you're interacting with, and they have heart failure or dying by suicide. We're suffering a lot of trauma and struggling, loss of
Yeah.
jobs, loss of family,
Yeah.
spouse. They call it survivor uh, because that's what
Yeah.
it is. It's surviving.
And, one of the things that I want to really call into focus on this episode of Outcry Witness Unspoken is how we as survivors long for closure and what the bankruptcy system itself has taken from you in a totally not monetary sense. Are you in this for the money, Curtis?
No, honestly, I'm fortunate to be where I have skills or ability to survive with. I'm not going to be. Some people are struggling with homelessness and
Yeah.
incarceration, but to me, sorry, I'll ignore that doorbell if you heard that.
It's okay.
For me, I even told in my hearing because they were beating me up, saying I was being an opportunistic or whatever,
Oh
and
my
I said,
God.
"Look, I'll forfeit every dollar if the Boy Scouts were to help us work together, a group of us, to eliminate statute of limitations, eliminate NDAs, enforce mandatory reporting, and help the community protect children." And it's the truth, because that's success to me. Because what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Buy another car? Buy another bigger house? I mean,
Right.
that's not going to help change things.
Right. Right. But what I'm not sure everyone can really appreciate about, the Boy Scouts of America bankruptcy is that you, as a survivor of Boy Scouts misconduct and crimes, have no chance to be honored with a proper testimony, disclosure moment in the courtroom.
That's
Am I right
correct.
about that?
That's their part of their strategy, is to silence us and not let people know what happened. Yeah.
Have you been silenced?
I have not been silenced because of social media and because what like example what you're helping me do, um, and because I want to get louder, and I'm going to keep fighting back, sharing my story.
Yeah. Now, when was bankruptcy, in your opinion, as a layperson, was bankruptcy system, was it designed to deal with tens of thousands of human sexual assault survivors?
It's not even designed for one individual to go through that, and especially it's horrible because if you have problems that are concerning with your attorney, you go to the trust doesn't care, you got to go to your attorney. If you're an individual, you go to the trust, and they're just going to give you the same copy and paste that's on their website. um, and it's horrible, horrible, especially in the community. Disinformation, and this is going to come out, intentionally dropped into Facebook groups, Reddit, whatever sense of trying to get answers or try to be heard and shared very, very significant concerns. It's a separation of division that very angry men,
Yeah.
not all men, some women, and some hurt families that represent lost survivors. Lost victims and claimants in this bankruptcy. There, there's massive confusion, and
Yeah.
they can say, "Oh, well, we got the trust, and they got a thing you can get help from." No, it's complete bullshit. They
And
don't
so
care.
for people who, most people know of the court system as just this big thing. Some people might know that there's the criminal system, civil system, and family court system. Some people might know that there's those systems, and then there's a federal system. But hardly anyone knows that bankruptcy is like a tunnel under all of these systems that speaks a different language that no one else knows. Did you have any
Absolutely.
idea what you were getting into?
No, and people might see a manufacturing defect, and you put your name in or whatever, and then you get, maybe out of a ton of people, you get a little bit of update or something if it's successful. But no, I had, right now, we're 6 years into it. You ask 100 attorneys, you're going to get 100 different, like, well, we think it's this happening. And it's intentionally dysfunctional,
Yeah.
intentionally harmful, and only protecting the entity. Yep.
Yeah. And they're not even really shy about that. You said earlier bankruptcy is about protecting the entity. What do you mean by that?
The thing is the whole process is where I think it was. I'm gonna have to get my numbers right, but I think it was 22 days of hearing for the bankruptcy. It was brutal, and everything that was presented was like we're creditors. Like, we are loaning money. Like, we gave them a service like plumbing or contracting, and then we're going to get money they owe us, but that's nothing of the sort.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and
That's right.
I knew that the first day in early 2020, when they
Oh,
said you're a creditor, and I said, what the hell does that, this is
it's
going to be
like,
bad.
did anyone stop and think how cheap that would make a survivor of abuse feel?
It was a
Like
gut punch. Yeah.
that, yeah, a gut punch, just a
Yeah.
complete disrespect.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, I don't prefer,
Abuse.
the word victim is tough too, because
Yeah,
we're fighting back, but creditor was just so, just it's just disgusting to think that that's what we're determined or defined as. But anyway, the thing is everything about the process, when the attorneys went on, when the United Methodist Church had their representatives saying, about their creditors, their claimants, they were LDS, these people were just like, oh, we want justice and all that. But what they were wanting was, here's our little 10 cents on the dollar. Please let
yeah,
us get out of this liability. Thank you for listening. But nothing, they didn't reach out to any survivor. They didn't talk to families, like, was somebody else in the troop harmed?
right.
No support circle. They don't
Wow.
give a f, you know what I'm saying? It's
So
disgusting.
really they reduced the crimes that happened on you to a value that they had already decided, but not even that. It was a fraction of a percentage of the value that they
Absolutely.
decided based on what do you have any idea what they based these values on?
That's the criminal thing of it, is not only do we not know, and it was drastically low, because I will just say, let me just look real quick. There is a known, at the least, 3,886 United Methodists, for example, and they were doing $30 million. And I'm just like, this is like a parking ticket kind of situation or something. And uh, it was just a matter of a liability. And with the insurance company, they bought back these policies at like 10 cents a dollar. Here's the biggest complaint. This could be a whole other episode, but just real quick, one sentence. They settled with these insurance companies before the settlement was final, and knowing the true extent of the liability. They didn't have a number on the claims. So I'm like, how do you know how much they should settle for, or how much they're liable for, if you don't have a number? They're still not done. They've processed 56,218. They've got
Right.
like 64,000 maybe total that are still active. and they're holding out more, recovery until they find that all out. But they still settled with these insurers, not all of them, but
Yeah,
key insurers from the day one. And I'm like, that
right.
was just a number they came out of their butt. Just let's just offer this
And,
much.
you know, understanding there are legal protections for survivors in some circumstances, such as the Crime Victims' Rights Act or the Crime Victims' Bill of Rights. Does any of that help you in bankruptcy?
That's a totally different system. It's all about the
Sure doesn't
entity.
seem like it. Right,
No,
exactly.
no.
So here you are, you've got a story to tell. And it's not just for fun, it's
Mm.
for your survival. It is for your psyche, your soul to be made whole after all this time. Is there any group that seems to care about providing a forum for you to tell your story?
No, the only hope you have is if you have an attorney that's not, unfortunately, with this whole thing, everybody's, even the great attorneys, are spread thin. So they can't even give you like frequent updates or frequent support, because they're just trying to figure out what's going on, and they're very reactive. And that's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
With this bankruptcy specifically, it was just horrible. But that's the thing too, is I'm going to try to figure out a way, until it's no longer an option to process legally. How do you share this kind of veteran experience to say,
Yeah.
look, this is what may or may not, this is what we had happen to us. Um, be prepared, because if they say, hey, there's a number that is being proposed for this community, understand that it's going to take years or very many different
Yeah.
steps to qualify.
And what you're saying is that basically any any company right now, any organization as we speak right now could have, you know, all these perpetrators hurting kids, and they can turn around and do the exact same thing that the Boy Scouts did to you, and that is eliminate your ability to confront the organization or the actual person who hurt you.
Absolutely. There's many, the current examples. It's ongoing. Like the Archdiocese, Catholic abuse. There's other examples. I'm more concerned about Camp Kanakuk.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of perpetrators in that, and they're fighting and fighting. Every little
Yep.
uh, recipe, copy, repeat the process until they get to they can't avoid it. I feel that they're going to file for bankruptcy, and then it's going to start over for them, and the people that have been harmed, is they're going to have to go through that with them. That's what I can't even stand it, because
I
it's like
mean,
you're
if you think
seeing.
about it, this is
Yeah.
really a a dark, genius, diabolical plan. Here
Yep.
you get to harvest the bodies of all the children that you want. And then as soon as people start talking and putting two and two together and
Yep.
asking certain types of questions, declare bankruptcy.
Yep.
And now you have zero rights.
Yep.
I mean,
Exactly.
does
Yeah.
it feel like you have any rights at all right now?
No. No. I mean, I just feel like you had a defective product, or a somebody uh took money out of your bank account or something, and you're just going in there, and then you realize, oh, they're just going to protect the entity, and you're not going to be made. There's no way that this harm can be fixed,
Right, right.
but there's no accountability.
Well,
There's just,
and there's no dignity for
right,
you as the
right,
harmed person.
right,
Whereas in criminal court, in civil court, you would have the right to say, "Wait a minute, I didn't approve that plea deal.
right, right.
You have to tell me what's going on." Like, you have been stripped of the dignity of being an American,
Well, the
really.
worst thing, I imagine there's been bankruptcies with like Catholic Church, dioceses, etc. before, but they've gotten so good with this there may not be another sexual abuse bankruptcy of this number of claimants because it's just so insane. But what I was going to say is the situation is that I'm trying to figure out how to explain it. They showed us a calculator on their website. It was called a compensation calculator, and you looked at it, and depending on how frequent, like if you're in this state or that state with statute of limitations, what type of abuse it was, how frequent it, there was a few attributes, variables that said, hey, here's your potential high and low amount that you may be compensated. Well, the reality is that calculator immediately stopped working after they approved a settlement. And then now we're going through the process and it's 10 cent, maybe less, like 5 to 6% of that amount is what we're going to get. So there's lots of examples of that they strategically had people voting to accept the settlement or not. And I rejected it both rounds. And it was based on fraud. I mean, it's like, here's your information. And it's not the way it starts to go through the system. And they always lean it back to the entity in their favor of how things may be defined or interpreted.
So,
I mean,
for
it's not even,
example,
that's real. Yeah, it's bad.
so, based on conversations we've had before, we've met a few times now, it sounds like your claim would be valued, let's just say rounded up to 5 million. Okay? But they're going to pay you like 1.5% of that. Is that what it sounds like?
The first payment is, and I'll just let you know, my recommended amount from the judge for my hearing, not a trial but hearing, was $2.5 million, which was in Louisiana only. I didn't get 3 states because the way the bankruptcy, there's pros and cons. It's Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. But the troop was in Louisiana, so basically this was claimed for Louisiana, and Louisiana doesn't have a lot of case history because they usually settle out of court and keep things buried. And 2.5 is for them it was a high number, but with a jury and a different state it would have been substantially more. But the thing is you're looking at maybe 6-8 high percent of that being recovered over years.
So it's based, first of all, their valuation of your claim is based on jury verdicts, right? And we know jury verdicts are hard to come by in certain states, specifically Louisiana, because it's Napoleonic code. It's basically like its own form of French law no one else practices.
Right.
I don't know if you know that, but it's
bad.
it's a weird venue. And then they reduced the amount that you will actually get paid by like 99%.
Yeah, there's mitigating and aggravating factors that they consider. Like I will tell you, the biggest thing that I've seen happen is someone will have a $2 million. Well, first I want to tell you, because I have an independent review option, mine was 2.5, and kind of based on jury from the judge. But in the 82,000, well, actually there was some expedited payment levels, but let's just say easily over 75,000 were matrix, and they weren't any kind of jury. They were just determining, again, aggravating, mitigating factors. But what I had seen is somebody like having $2 million, like this is what the kind of abuse, the state, it went from $2 million. If you had a relationship, let's say with a priest in the church while you went to Boy Scouts and the abuse only happened in the Boy Scouts, they would say multiply that by 0.5 because you had another relationship, a mixed claim.
Oh my God.
They would half it. So it went from 2 to 1 million. And then they would say, oh, that person's in Texas. So it went like to 10%. So it went from 2 to 1 to 100,000. And then you had, I could just tell you, after with your attorney and your fees, let's just say you had expenses of finding evidence. You had to do some research. You had to pay experts for, whatever to say that you had PTSD or something. People are in the hole, in the red, prior they're negative compared to when they went in that situation.
I'm
And the
so
whole
sorry.
the whole system, the whole system. And I'm just this is just an average. I'm saying it's very much worse for some people, and it's definitely not a positive. Um, uh, it's just thousands of dollars based on, even if it was millions of evaluation. It's horrible.
Oh my God.
I mean, some people are
Now,
getting like nothing, and they owe. You know what I'm saying? That's bad.
I mean, there should be. Are you surprised that there are seemingly no safeguards, like no forum for you to actually give a victim impact statement? I mean,
Right,
that's the bare minimum, right? Is just reading a victim impact statement for someone to have to listen to, even if it's that bald head lawyer from the documentary. You
right.
know, there's nothing like that, right?
Nope. No, that was
There's
not part of
there's
my
nothing
review.
there's nothing that says you can't pay out of pocket for this. I mean, they're
I'm
making
sorry, you
you
broke up a little
pay.
bit.
They're
There was nothing. What?
making
I'm
you
sorry, it broke
pay.
up a little bit.
There's no baseline saying that, survivors should not have to pay out of pocket
Right, right. No,
for
the
independent review
right, right.
or
It
anything.
was
I mean,
$20,000 just to have the option.
just to get called a
And my
liar by some insurance lawyers.
yeah, and my expenses are substantial because I
Yeah.
had a expert witness, and I had a doctor, and I had a valuation, and I'm talking. I hate to even. It's going to be, like 50 to maybe 100. I hate to. I don't know. It's not over yet, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, out of
You're
what I might recover.
you are funding the prosecution of this entity, basically.
Well, in some cases, it might be a combination between the law firm helping to partner on that, but the reality is they're going to have to pay for the expenses out of my recovery, or what I'm saying, if that
Wow.
happens, like if you fly and you are interviewed or whatever, that can't be done on Zoom because it's like there's a physical damage examination for some
Yeah.
people or stuff like that. You're going to have costs, and the attorney often may
Yeah.
help with that, but it's going to come out of your claim. You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
It's not
yeah,
a
yeah,
charity.
no, I get
Yeah.
it. I get it. I get it. So, you know, let's talk about why this is so offensive. Let's talk about the liability. I don't want people to get lost in the weeds of the bankruptcy because the core of the case is so egregious. How you say that you were aware when the perversion files came out. Did you look at them?
Yeah, I
What
knew
are
things were
they?
bad.
What are the
I'm sorry.
perversion files? What are the
Okay.
perversion
Well,
files?
okay. I'll just say, first of all, I knew that there was problems because of my experience and hearing. We just assume that's just the culture, that, oh, this happens and it's messed up. But when the perversion files came out, which are known as the red flag files, also, which means they had a scoutmaster or a volunteer, somebody involved, even people employed executive level with the Boy Scouts. Um, they would have, in the old days, like the Rolodex, the files, cards, and they had a red dot or a red, system to put a red thing on it to say, hey, this person, someone's had a complaint, or this is somebody. Even in the old days, if someone was considered a homosexual, they would red flag file it. Not that's the same. Or if it was maybe drinking and causing liability, they
Yeah.
were red flagging these people. The worst thing, though, and the majority of it, and we're talking thousands at least, that we know about, is like close to 8,000. I think it's 7,600 of them that had kind of been released, and they're not even fully released to the public, acknowledging that amount, but there's so many that have been deleted, or I mean destroyed, or just not released at all, or they're redacted. They've released, but they don't even have the name on it or information. So we go, okay, well, they reported this person. This is a perpetrator, but you know, do you go talk to the family, or you don't know, like what's the connection with this hidden information? And that came out with a case that went with I think it was 20 something. There's so many examples of how horrible it is with so many in one troop getting abused, that they had it go to court, and the attorneys requested, kind of pretty much demanded, like, look, we want to get these files that we are hearing about so we can have this be part of the show the jury. And then they were like, holy crap, here's a large number of known perpetrators, and it had the one that was at the in the jury, I mean, in the that claim part of it. And then they realized, okay, there's a lot of hidden abuse. And when I heard about that in around 2012, I think the case started 2010ish, and then in 2012 it came public, and they're like, hey, here, LA Times did a big article on it.
Yeah.
And I saw my perpetrator listed in there, and I was like, oh my God, these people knew all this
Oh,
time.
wow.
What I mean, like, since the beginning in the 1920, very beginning. But the thing is, in 1934, I think it is, New York Times had an article discussing thousands of red flag files of perpetrators. I mean, this has been going on for like over, like 100 years.
Well, and it, an organization can't necessarily control if someone's going to do a bad act, right? But they can control what they do once they learn of the bad act, once they have knowledge. Are you telling me
100%.
that they did not remove these red flag perpetrators and kept them around kids?
There's many of them. Here's the thing. At the least, a guy named Robert Doe might have changed his name to Bob Doe, and he's in another troop still active. I mean, things were manipulated or buried,
Yeah.
or known people. One of the worst things is they had an executive that worked from an Eagle Scout through decades. He worked through the Boy Scouts, and he was like a youth director. I can't remember the actual title, but he was known for I'm just gonna here we go. Uh, he was called National Youth Director. In 2005, he's arrested. He worked for them for 39 years, and he I think it was Australia, saw this activity online, moving material, and collecting and distributing, and they called up Texas and said, hey, this is what's going on. And they found out it's a freaking executive that has been over all these, protecting the children from these perpetrators. And it's an inside job.
Oh my
And that's just one
God.
example. There are many problems within their company or own. He resigned before they arrested him, and he's getting pension. He's getting paid as a retired perpetrator.
Oh my God.
And they have $1 billion pension fund. They didn't tap into that for the bankruptcy. I mean, it's layers and layers of insanity. It's just like, how is this even possible?
I mean, it's almost like they're facilitating abuse of children.
Yeah, well, I flat out, I have no other way to describe them except a sex trafficking organization, because here's the
Yeah.
deal. They have had troops that weren't even going, like merit badges. All of it was just so they can have the kids meet with people from international visitors going to football games or going to like attraction activities that had nothing to do with merit badges and stuff, but it was a fake Boy Scout troop. I mean, that's known factual evidence. And all the stuff that's happening with the abuse. These adults that are abusing these kids don't care about. They're just looking for opportunity.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And again, like you said, if they're not mandatory reporting, because they don't report it until it's like in the news, like, oh, this person's arrested. Then they go, oh, we're sorry, and we take this. Never two things. Never have they said, "Oh, we found this," because they're investigating and then they take care of it. That's never happened. The other thing that's never happened is when it happens, they don't go, "Oh, the kids around this guy, do you need help? Were you also, are you okay?"
Oh
The,
my God.
three of us in my troop are in the bankruptcy. They never come when we were kids and he got arrested twice. They never reached out and said, "Hey, we know this person is in our files and he was in your troop. Are you okay?" Nothing. So
So this is a
don't.
legit cover up.
Yeah, people need to let go
It's
of any hope.
it's just like you said, it's a sex trafficking facilitation
Right.
of
I mean,
children.
because I think of it like cancer. If there's something that has harmed children or anybody, and people don't first of all try to prevent it, and then try to figure out what's causing it, and then say like, okay, who are potentially harmed, let's reach out and see if we can help them heal or help them
Yeah.
uh, be known that they're okay. None of that happened. None of it.
I mean, when we look at, we both live in North Texas, and look at the way that the Salina, crime was handled. They
Right.
did best practices, right? Two children outcried, and then they interviewed, all these boys in the locker room. And they, what it showed was that the tentacles of the crime were
Right.
expansive. Nearly 40 boys were affected. And that should have been done in your situation too. And this crime that happened,
Right.
that if you know that a perpetrator has had access to kids, it's not rocket scientists to
Yep.
say, "Have you seen this man? Is there anything you want to tell us?" And if they say
Yes.
no, they don't want to say it, fine. But at least you've done due diligence. And what you're describing is a complete, not even failure, it is a refusal to do due
Well,
diligence.
my thought is this: it's always my filter is it about the survivors or protecting children,
Yeah.
and survivors being heard, future abuse being prevented, protecting children. But my thing is if they had somebody stealing money from the pot of that entity, they would say, "Hey, like here's a $10,000 reward for reporting, where
You're
this
so
might be."
right.
They don't care. They would be
You're
all
so
over it.
right. You're so
Especially,
right.
I'll say one other thing, especially if you had priests and coaches or whatever. It doesn't matter to me if they're abusing kids, they need to be stopped. If they were all of a sudden showing up at the pulpit with a broken arm or busted kneecap, and it was like, oh, this is numerously being these people are being attacked, they would say, "Look, we need to find out who's harming these pastors and priests and teachers and stuff, because we got to stop that from happening, and we're going to get on top of
Right.
this." They don't do that for
Right.
the kids. I'm
And,
like, that
there's a
tells you.
real cognitive distortion here where they don't want to know.
Right.
They don't want to know.
Right.
And look, let's face it, Curtis, is this how you want to be spending your Saturday? Probably not. But
Right.
looking
Right.
away means not just our children, generations of children will
Right.
suffer.
Right.
Like, it's not just like, oh, Pollyanna, it's like literally the future of humanity on our planet if we don't
Thank
rein
you.
this in.
Yeah, going again back to the cancer thing. I remember I was abused prior to like a fourth grade teacher. I'm assuming it was breast cancer. And she kind of left and was getting treatment, and she had the where she lost her hair, so she had a thing on her head, and she came to visit us, and it was one of my favorite teachers, and she wanted to hug me like, "Hey, I missed you." And I was just instinctively, personal space, and I thought like, "Oh my God," as a fourth grader, I didn't want her to think I was scared of her because I understand enough about the cancer, but I also had personal space. Just
Mhm.
I didn't have any concerns with her about that, but it was just like, I just didn't want to really kind of be touched in a sense. And what I'm trying to say is that was a problem with cancer. People didn't know what like, oh, am I going to get cancer? Is there
Yeah.
how do you talk to people about it? Because you don't know if like, oh, they're just not going to make it or whatever kind of situations back then. It was very, very different the awareness today. And then what I'm trying to get to is I want that to happen when someone reports sexual abuse, that you say, hey, let's go watch a movie. Let's go, let's go hiking or something to talk to friends and just get your mind off of it. And it's just really a problem that I think this is our cancer awareness kind of moment to say, okay, we're going to let people speak out. We're going to support them. We need
Yeah.
social services to let the victim be able to be protected. Because I'm going to tell you right now, that's a big concern when you're
Right.
speaking against these entities or
Yep.
these politicians or religious figures. It's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I mean, you listed a few things earlier that I know what they mean. You said mandatory reporting, no NDAs, no bankruptcy for organizations that facilitate child abuse. And you listed a fourth thing, I can't remember, but we're on the same page when it comes to these are non-negotiables for survivors for the future of America.
Right.
Do you remember the fourth thing?
Yeah. Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. Okay.
Yep.
So let's just briefly break each of these down. You and I know each other a little bit as, we're following Trey's law. And you were so kind to
Yes.
introduce me to Elizabeth Phillips, who has been championing that legislation across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the viewers, what does Trey's law do?
Well, Trey's law eliminates sexual abuse related NDAs, or non-disclosure agreements, or there's other kind of definitions of agreement to not, speak publicly about a search. Like they have a
So basically, a case would be a settlement would happen, probably pre-litigation, but as part of the settlement, you would be muzzled. You would
yeah,
be
and it might not even
unable to
be.
talk about it.
Yeah, it may be just an agreement, like, hey, listen, we're going to help this person get therapy, and whatever
Right,
kind of expenses is the amount that they're getting paid. I don't know. It might not even involve a payment. You're just saying, like, look, I want someone held accountable, and it might be like they just pray for this person. That the perpetrator. I don't know what. There's
right.
so many levels, but you have an agreement, and usually, it's a thing where they think, okay, we're going to address this, but when you sign papers, you like, oh, not only were you signing papers on this agreement, but there's an NDA part slipped in at the last page.
Right,
After you go
right.
through, some people like buying a car or whatever, like all day long you're discussing the situation, you're waiting on this
Yep,
attorney and you're waiting for this, and you're worn down. I mean, this is
yep.
strategic, and then you go like, ugh, I just want to sign. I'm not going to tell anybody because I'm done talking about it.
Right.
Maybe, but that's not the case. You do want to heal and, talk to, counseling,
Yeah.
maybe
I
talk to
mean, look,
survivor support groups.
it's a very
Yeah.
archaic concept because we now know, thanks to the work of, some researchers, is that your ability to say the truth about what happened to you
Yep.
is what begins your recovery. You
Yep.
cannot heal until you have said the truth about what's happened to you. I believe that. My book is about it. It's
Yep.
the entire principle. And,
It's
we might not have known that 60 years ago, but we know
right.
it now
Right.
that you cannot take someone's voice from them. I mean, that's why we have
Right.
the First Amendment. Your right to speak is
Yep.
is part and parcel of your right to live.
Well, and it's like you said, the victim's impact statement that's in the bankruptcy not available, and that would have been really significant to me. But I will say that
I cannot believe that no one thought, hey, it'd be really easy and free. Let's just open up the bankruptcy courtrooms in all these different jurisdictions every
right.
Friday
Right.
for 3 years. And let's let
Right.
every survivor who wants to come and do a victim impact statement,
Right.
let's just listen.
Right. And I
It would
think
have
what
cost them nothing.
part of what I'm planning to do is do it like what I'm calling a survivor share. I want to have these potentially tens of thousands. I'm hoping it's going to be at least hundreds or thousands that are brave and at the point where they are able to publicly share. And it may be just a John Doe, or Jane Doe, but that story being heard, the
Yeah.
experience being public. so people know like this is what happened, because some of them, again, it's like multiple states, like over a dozen states, again, with the like sex trafficking.
Yeah.
But the thing with
And you and I, we did the math. I mean, I could literally spend the rest of my life doing outcry witness interviews for Boy Scouts
right,
and not even finish.
right. Well, the thing for me personally is I had been doing this since I was 16. Like I said, I'm 56, for over like 4 decades. um the thing is when I first spoke publicly in front of the state capitol of Texas, uh, I think it was it was the first time we were doing the statute of limitations, trying to eliminate that in Texas. Um, it was like my body reacting as if I was, like a better word, like food poisoning. I couldn't breathe. I was just saying the words that I had thought to share,
Ah,
noted, and it was just. But after that, I felt like getting sick after being food poisoned. I felt so much more like just a weight off my back. It was
yes.
very healing. So being
Yes.
heard is very, and that happened multiple times.
Yes.
And then support groups, which I've been going for 3 plus maybe 4 years, once a week or twice a week, different Wednesdays and Saturdays or whatever days it may be. Sometimes it's Tuesday, Thursday. I mean, the thing is, I'm just saying, basically, you're hearing other people, you're going like, oh, that's something, even though everybody
Yep.
might have a unique experience, like we can relate. You can talk to your family, friends, or they don't know if they're not a survivor, but talking to this community, you understand each other on a different level.
Yep.
And that's what's the Trey's law, that's what's so important,
Yep.
is to be able to heal. And when you're silenced, where you're the potentially, like Trey has been shared, it's been shared that he shared that they felt like they were controlling him, and they were
Yeah.
like not even going to his therapist. And I'll just say that is one of the most inspiring things for me, with all the stuff
Yeah.
that's going on with the bankruptcy and the Epstein files and everything, is I was able to testify and be a part of that team and see the success of zero no votes the whole way, unanimously voted through the state of Texas to eliminate NDAs, despite, like, maybe Southern Baptist Convention and the Catholic Church,
Yep.
whoever was trying to fight us. uh, it They pushed back, and in fact, it was said something like, "These are demons," or "These are not Christians," because those were the entities trying to silence us. And it's like, no, that's not being Christian. That's a
Yeah.
problem when you're trying to protect the predators and not the children.
Yeah.
Um, I do want to share
No.
one thing that's current, if about Trey's law, if you want.
That. Yeah. Go ahead. Go for
Okay,
it.
real quick. It just been unanimously passed the House of Rep in Kansas. I'm talking about within a couple days. This is happening.
Bravo.
And then so it
Bravo.
just got to go through Senate. That'll be a law. It just passed unanimously out of the Judicial Committee in the House in Oklahoma, but it also is covering the statute of limitations in Oklahoma. So that's going to
So
be amazing.
that's going to be huge. And,
Yep,
to your point about hope, like, yeah, it's dark, but we have tools that we've never had before to get results that we've never had before. And
right,
yeah, it's going to take someone like you basically working on this full time, and someone like me basically working on it full time, and Elizabeth. But
right,
there are results that can be had, because at the end of the day, it a lot of people have been victims or are survivors, and they know too well how important it is to say the truth about what's happened to you. And also, too, no one can say that protecting children is not a priority. No one can say it.
right. Right. They if they
So
if they don't want to, that's a red flag. I know that.
yeah, like the
Right.
biggest red flag, like put an opponent up and put that on their signs. So let's talk about the statute of limitations. Texas has a 30-year statute, but it's basically unlimited for criminal cases. Is your perpetrator still alive? And if so, would you be interested in pursuing a case?
Well, I would just say this: in Texas, some of it on the civil side is not retroactive, and or
True.
so there's a difference between criminal and civil,
Yes.
and then if it's retroactive, like if they have a law and it's for cases, things that happen
Right.
after, that's good for those victims, but there's just a lot of history that we need to make it things out retroactive.
Like, what is
My
yours? 5 years after the 18th birthday, based on the date
uh,
of your crime?
well, I'll tell you this: my perpetrator in the Boy Scouts has passed away.
I'm
Probably
sorry.
around 10 years after it was where he was arrested twice. Um, after I had left and the other, we all aged out of the Boy Scouts and stuff. But the thing is it was 30 years after you're 18, but the statute of limitations now, because of 2024, we fought it and they contested it as being unconstitutional. And that was the Catholic Church fighting that. Um, I had a petition. I got a lot of activity and awareness on it. And it was an army of attorneys and stuff. It wasn't like anything magical that I did, but it was part of a group that they said they flipped a vote in the Supreme Court of Louisiana and they made it. They eliminated it for three years, like a window. And I'm hoping
Mhm.
the legislation just said no. The 3 years it was contested as being unconstitutional, it the Supreme Court of Louisiana said it was constitutional, and then they added 3 more years, and again, hopefully they'll eliminate
Mhm.
completely. So that's the current status of that.
But really, let's be honest. We are against the statute of limitations for crimes like these for many reasons, but least of all which, if you're going to offend on a kid, you ought to have to watch your back for the rest of your life. There should never be a
Absolutely,
time where you get relief. And
absolutely.
the child, there are many reasons why people choose not to disclose, but we also know that sometimes it's not a choice. Sometimes it is physical and you cannot say what has happened to you. I know, I've lived that. That's what my book is about. And so the statute of limitations is a very archaic concept that needs to be put by the wayside, retired once and for all. So you'll keep me
Yeah,
posted on all that and know that I'll support those efforts.
absolutely.
Mandatory reporting was
Right,
one.
right. Yeah, you need to be able to have your day in court, and not be silenced just
Yep.
from time. Yeah.
Yep. So as we're talking about this, it sounds like we could probably put together a really beautiful package of survivors, a survivor bill that says you can't
Oh
use
yeah.
bankruptcy on our cases. You have to
Yep.
expand the statute of limitations to where it doesn't exist anymore. You
Right.
must report individuals inside your organization. We already have that on the books, but guess what? If you don't, I don't know, some consequence.
Right.
And then the NDAs,
Right.
So that's the four
Well,
things.
one thing I want to
The
mention
four
about
pillars.
bankruptcies. Yes, yes. One thing I want to mention about bankruptcies is kind of like NDAs and statute of limitations, that if you don't file a bankruptcy within a certain amount of time, the statute of limitations may rush a survivor before they're ready to come forward. Like if there's a 10-year limit and they're still in their 30s, they may not be
Yeah,
ready to.
yeah.
Well, the bankruptcy, you have a bar date to file, and then you lose
Oh my
that
God.
opportunity. That is another harmful process. You should
Oh my
be able to come
God.
forward with a claim when you are ready to do that.
Yep. And well, I mean, I could go off on lots of tangents procedurally, but these are really important four pillars. The four pillars, we need to keep this in keep it in view
Right.
because you're right. We have to stop it or generations will continue to be hurt.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it broke up. You need to start what? I'm sorry.
We have to stop this or else
Oh, right.
generations will continue to be hurt. Well,
Absolutely.
Curtis, I have really enjoyed this starter guide to the Boy Scouts of America bankruptcy. I want to talk briefly. There's a couple books out, and then there's a Netflix documentary. What resources are there for viewers to learn more about what happened?
Oh, great. There is a really good book. This is made by the LA Times author of the perversion files we were talking about. His name is here. He unfortunately passed away in 2024, but this came out in 2025, like February. And this has really good.
Oh,
This has really good. It starts off about the history where the Boy Scouts of America cannibalized other youth programs and monopolized it with the chartering organization with the U.S. Congress charter, and then the abuse was ongoing and hidden, and it built up to the bankruptcy, and then it talks about how the bankruptcy was for the further dark because of the litigation financing, where the
Yeah.
attorneys get in there, they get in debt to get claims, and then they have so much debt they're only worried about paying their bills and getting the like, let's settle this quickly instead of fighting for the victim's best
I
interest. They're just
know.
like, hey, it's a numbers things.
It breaks my heart as a lawyer. Like, there's so many areas where the lawyers are the problem,
Yep. So that
or
book
the
really
lawyers
covers
just
that.
stand by and watch while problems. I mean, I don't think I could have been a part of this bankruptcy without completely freaking out on everybody.
Yeah, well, it's you've got so many that have quit or so many that aren't with us anymore because of the
Yeah.
situation. But this book is what another great book. This is way ahead of its time. Look at my camera here. And
Scout's honor.
this book is what made the Netflix documentary Scout's Honor based off of. I was trying to find out when this book was published, but it's been around quite a while. 1994.
So
So it
there's,
was a whistleblower.
wow. So
Yeah.
1994, Scout's honor. And then On My Honor was published in 2025. And
Yep.
then the Netflix show is called what?
Scout's Honor, and
Okay.
there's a Hulu show called Leave No Trace. That is executive produced by Ron Howard, and it's also they're all well done and they're not dark or graphic. It just describes, like the statistical and historical milestones of the process, and it leads up to the bankruptcy. Like a year or two old. Actually, Leave No Trace and Scout's Honor are almost 2 years old or so at least. But
Mm-hmm.
after the bankruptcy, we definitely need to come up with an update on that.
Yeah.
Because it's not even over yet. The bankruptcy's still, yeah. Anyway, yeah,
Right. So
lots to
those are
tell.
resources. And then you personally fund, maintain, update how many different websites for viewers to find out more
Well,
about this?
thanks. Yeah, I started off right after the court hearing because I realized we're not having anybody else put this together, and there's so much in the bankruptcy documents. It's just tons and tons of documents. And I was trying to figure out states, statute of limitations, and the factors, the type of abuse. These attorneys are talking about stuff, but they don't even have their own system to
Yeah.
use this data. And survivingscouting.org is the main website that I started pretty immediately about that. And then scoutingsettlementtrust.org is the one that I had it all on one, and I like, oh, I got to take the bankruptcy stuff. So scoutingsettlementtrust.org is the other one, and it's linked from Surviving Scouting. But then I've got other websites. One of them is Sex Abuse Registry, and that's just the perpetrators. Because I wanted to keep that separate, where we could just have profile. I mean, it's thousands and thousands, and daily there's new ones. Like it's like a dozen to 100, sometimes more. Every day of new perpetrators
Yeah.
in the media that we know about. There's so many that it's just active, and we have no clue that they're
For Boy
maybe being held
Scouts, there's
accountable.
still more
No, no, I'm sorry.
perpetrators.
Just in general, because here's the
Oh,
thing:
yeah.
is that if a teacher or a preacher is with a school or a church or something like that, and they have a youth organization, or there's a lot of community. You know, you never know how things are related. Or
Yeah.
I'll tell you
No.
this: do you remember the BTK killer, Bind,
Yeah, of
Torture, Kill?
course. Yeah.
He was a
Kansas.
scoutmaster.
Oh my God, you're
I mean, I
right.
could tell you many, many examples of that. So here's the thing: if someone hears about that story, and there's books and documentary, and they were in Boy Scouts, they don't know, like, holy crap, he was at one of our meetings or something. If they were in that area, they
Right,
don't,
right,
because
right, right,
you're
right,
not
right.
connecting these dots.
Yep. Got to connect the dots. It's a very tangled web, and perpetrators never turn down an opportunity to gain access to their, to their targets.
Yep, it's a mess.
Well, Curtis, it is a mess, but we are going to conquer evil, you and I.
Let's do it.
Even if it's just you and I. No, there will be
We,
others, but
you bet. Yep.
I'm so glad to have met you and just to begin to give
Same.
the high level view of what you're going through with this absolute travesty of justice.
Well, thank you for doing everything you're doing to help people know and sharing your outcry. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know what you're looking to do long term, but I know you got a lot of plans, and I hope you can kick some butt
Thank you. Thank you.
or
Yeah,
keep
Outcry
kicking butt.
Witness. Outcry Witness ships on April 7th. So I'm hoping that it makes it into the 57,748,000 women who have survived contact sexual violence in their life, according to the newest CDC data, plus the
Wow.
1 in 6 men.
Yes. Yeah. It's important for people to
Yeah,
understand.
because everyone's frozen and doesn't know how to
Right.
talk about it. You know,
Right.
you
They.
you're uniquely situated and so am I, and we had to find our voice. But if there had been a book, wouldn't it have been nice?
Yeah. 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 It took a long time, and people need to know that being heard and being and sharing is a very healing
Yep,
thing. It's very
it
very
has to
good. Yeah.
happen. Shame must change sides. I'm going to get back to the
Right.
ending of Giselle Pellico's book. It has been very, very moving, and I highly encourage you to listen after you read my book.
Absolutely.